It's not worth going to the Olympics if you qualify out of a stroke of fate and luck. What makes the Olympics so special is that it's just so unattainable for so many people that to qualify and to achieve it requires diving deep into yourself to know where your limits are.
What does it mean to navigate the Olympic stream? What can we learn from the journey, the destination, and beyond? I'm Adam Creek, and this is Row Row Tokyo, exploring the past, present, and future of the Canadian rowing athletes on their path to Tokyo 2020. We've got a great episode for you today with Maxwell Lattimer and Patrick Keane, two incredible lightweights. They're rowing the lightweight men's double, training with Dick Tonks group. So in that group, they have the men's single with Trevor Jones, the men's pair with Kai and Conlon. They've got the women's single with Carling and the women's double. You've heard most of these other athletes on the podcast. They go a little bit deeper into the training and the training experience and the competitive experience. We get started talking about the recent Olympic qualifier. They've just come from Lucerne, Switzerland, where they've qualified their men's double for the Olympics. And we didn't really have the opportunities to dig into their past, but I didn't mind because we were able to actually rip off some layers and dig deeper into their training, deeper into their partnership, and even dig deeper into the nitty-gritty, nerdier parts of rowing. So you'll get a good sense of what it's like to train under Dick Tonks and the insights of these two young and incredible athletes. Max Lattimer, Pat Keane, have a listen. Oh, Canada. Max Lattimer, Patrick Keane, lightweight men's double. A pleasure to have you on Row Row Tokyo.
Thanks for having us, Adam.
Well, first off, I want to start by just saying congratulations on the amazing racing in Lucerne. Congratulations on qualifying for the Olympics. The lightweight men's double has quite a reputation. It's very deep. It's very competitive. And for those of you listening who are less familiar with the sport of rowing, the lightweight men's double is the only lightweight category that is out there. So that means that of all the rowers in the world that are, how much do you weigh? 155 pounds?
70 kilos, whatever that is.
Yeah, 70 kilos.
It's like 153.
Yeah, 153. So it's
Damn, it's that light.
Well, and I'll say most lightweights that I know now in my 40s or 50s, they're usually around like 180, 190. Some can get over 2 bills if they're drinking too much beer. So, to be a lightweight rower is to, you're naturally light, but at the same time, you're cutting down a lot too. All this being said, it's a very competitive field. You had an amazing heat, a good semifinal, and then you blazed down the course in final. So tell me about that. Tell me about the qualifying heat. You didn't qualify 2 years ago at the World Championships. So tell me about the World Championships and then what changed between then and just recently in Lucerne.
I would say like 2019, we're just doing a lot of hard work. And even going through that year before COVID, we kind of were just on the rails, like grinding through the work. Not very smart, I would say, and just like trying to blow the body into another dimension and everything. And I guess this next year we kind of like took a step back while we were in quarantine and like thought about how we would want to train. And then we came together with all these pretty cool ideas from back in 2019 to here. I would say we were a lot smarter and like kind of listened to our body for those like emergency sounds. They're like, okay, this isn't going to work. And like we listened to them and responded before. I think we just...
Well, tell me what an emergency sound is.
Emergency sounds to me is like a boat is tracking to port, or I feel a little tighter on one side than the other. And just feeling a little tightness on one side is like, I don't know, like something obviously is like Max is feeling something, I'm feeling something. emergency, pressing the red button.
Yeah, I think we really like the way that Dick Tonks kind of like entrenched in our training was just like a toughness and a belief that the work could bring us to the front of the field just by pure exertion. But the only caveat was we were just brutalizing the boat. And so, yes, we were super fit. And yes, we had the ability to create incredible speed on the drive. But the one thing that we weren't doing very well, which is, I think, one of our biggest strengths now, is what you're doing with the boat when your blades are out of the water. A number of people that watched racing that reached out to me in 2019 fall, knowing that the project was going to continue, that we were going to go towards the last chance regatta, and that we had a belief that we could get the Olympic spots secured. And their advice was, what you're doing with your blades in the water is among the best in the world. And as soon as your blades come out of the water, you're at the back of the field for what you're doing. And so what that required, and what Patty was kind of alluding to, is sitting down with Jeremy, our coach, and understanding how we were going to move together with our blades out of the water to keep the stern high, to be able to maximize your boat run and maximize your efficiency, so that when you take that next stroke, you've maintained a higher velocity throughout each stroke, so that overall the effect is that 2 to 3 seconds faster that we needed in order to be in the mix with the front of the field.
Well, and I like that. We talk about being technical and technical as a rower and making sure that you're doing the motion properly and you're listening to the boat, and kind of like Pat said, listening to those sounders. You obviously have to pull hard and you have to go really hard, but you also need to let the boat run. And because the field is so competitive and everyone will be very fit, very strong, it's so important for you to be technical. And like you said, keep the boat out of the water so it doesn't sink in, say at the finish and when you're coming up on the recovery. So what exactly were you doing to keep the bow? Let's just dig in deeper on that one because I'm curious. So if the bow's digging in on the recovery, obviously you have more wetted surface area. It's slowing down the boat. When that happened, what did you do to rectify it?
Rhythm was a huge piece. Probably the biggest strength that Patty and I have is that we are contrasting in a lot of the things that we do. Our personalities contrast, and there's a bit of our style that contrasts. Patty's quite patient. He has a really good sense for the boat and feel, whereas I'm more type A, more aggressive. And so one of the things that was happening, especially with the bow at the back end, was I was accelerating without proper connection into the bow through the pin and rushing out of the back end. So not giving the boat a chance to feel the speed that you created and then bring it forward. So if you're rushing out of the back, together you're rushing. Patty would either rush to catch up with me, and then into the front, rather than being patient and letting the boat come to you, that rushing was matched with rushing into the front end. And that, of course, leads to the big stern dip, which is what every crew and the best crews in the world try to avoid.
Yeah, the rush through the finish, the rush into the catch reduces the run, and you have to keep the run going. So describe the rhythm just a little bit more. I want Pat to do this one. So tell me what is your ideal rhythm?
Well, I love like just feeling the boat just like up out of the water, but you just don't feel it slow down at all. Like me in the back, I can't see the stern dip down because Max is in the way. But yeah.
Yeah, that's Max.
Oh, really? Yes, Max. Thank you. Going into the single every so often, I love seeing the stern not dip down at all. And then I kind of get this feeling in the single, and I try to like bring that back into the double when me and Max are together. And again, I can't see it. So it just feels like it's lively. It never gets heavy. It's always very light, and you have to like just keep working on both ends. It feels like you get a bit of the stern falls down when you go lax and relax at the back end and you don't draw it through. So I like to be patient. I like to work hard on both ends, but then be very like delicate and flowy coming back up, but still like having a bit of control on the oars going up to the catch.
Yeah, so you're keeping, and I want to go back into the stern diving into the, at the catch when you're looking at that, because it's, how do you self coach yourself first in the single and then sitting in the bow seat of the double? Because one, you'll have visual cues, but the second one, and you've used some good language like keep it lively, keep it flowy. It becomes, there's a lot of visceral feedback, but I'm curious beyond just feel what else that you're doing to coach yourself to keep that liveliness at the front end.
Yeah, I would say in like the single, I kind of like just learned that to keep it alive, you really and like simply you just have to drive it quite hard. The single is like super awesome for that. Like there's no one around to push for you, and watching yours as you just keep driving it quite hard, you kind of feel the stern pick up for you, and like you have to, or else the single just dives down so quickly. So I got that feeling in the single and just repeating it for 15, 20K and then going into the double. You've just ingrained it for 90 minutes and now I know what it feels like in a double. And like a call for me and Max is like just row it like you're in the single. And that's really what it feels like. It just feels like I'm in a single. There's just one little body in the way. And I still get the same feeling. It's like quite exact from single to double, just a little more force.
Is it the visceral feeling? You said you pick it up, you're quick, hard and quick at the catch. What's the feeling in your hands? Kind of walk through the whole chain. Your hands, elbows, shoulders.
I would say like we both get an appropriate amount of water on the blade, so it's not like heavy, heavy, heavy.
When you say appropriate amount of water on the blade, are you burying the blade at the catch like 1 inch, 2 inch, 3/4 blaried?
Yeah. And like this is where a lot of the conversations, it's like how hard is hard at a point, is it too deep and you're not actually being effective enough? And we try to be like get as much load but being very shallow, so getting a light amount of the most efficient load, and at a certain point being too deep we just are putting more weight and going the same speed if we were to not have the blade so deep into the water.
Yeah, the light long catch. It's such a counterintuitive feel, and I remember going through that epiphanal moment as a rower myself, where it felt lighter but it went faster. But you're still pushing hard, but It's it's a hard flow.
You hit the nail on the head there, Adam. Like, I remember I was talking to Liam Parsons, and just we were
Yeah, great. So Liam Parsons, great Canadian lightweight rower.
yes, yeah, Olympic bronze medalist, and him and I, like, as a stroke to stroke, because I stroked in Rio, I talked to him a lot before the Rio Games, and he's just been a really good mentor in bouncing ideas off of. And one of the things he said, he's like, I think what you guys have trained is you love load, because load is a sensation throughout your entire body that you're working. And you can train load over and over and over and over and over because it gives you tons of feedback. But when you're racing, too much load is just negative speed, and it's harder on the body and slower. And so he gave me the idea of being like, when you have the load that you like, drive it faster. I mean, it sounds simple, but I never really thought about it like that, being like, the load that you have is enough. Don't go searching for more. Just take what you have. And when you want to go faster and increase down the speed down the course, drive the blades through the water faster together.
I love that. I get I get chills thinking about that actually.
Yeah, because you know the feeling, right? Like that
Yeah.
that epiphany. I mean, the epiphany happened for me. I mean, it happened like 3 weeks before we left for Europe. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, I had this conversation with Liam maybe 3 months ago, and it took me like, I was thinking about it every day. But we were during our race series, the last time we talked to you before we left to Europe, it was down that course where Patty made a call just for lightness, and it just connected with me. And I was like, holy crap, our blades are going through the water faster. The load feels the same, and the splits, I just know the boat got faster. And it
Yeah.
was like an epiphany in the second half of a race. We just increased speed when you should be like on your
Yeah.
rivet, like mentally falling out of place. Like, how are you going to keep yourself together to the finish line? And all of a sudden it just clicked. And I was like, holy shit, I'm 27 years old and I just figured this out now. Like, what is wrong with me?
I love it.
Still learning.
But this is what you work, 8 years to have these epiphanal moments.
Exactly. And I feel blessed that it happened when it did, because that is, we carry that through now throughout all of the racing that we did in Europe.
And it showed. You guys looked really good. You looked really good in Europe, right? It's, when you have the load you want, drive it faster. It's such a good way to put it. And, and thank you, Liam, for, passing down that phrasing.
And this is why I think Dick is such an effective coach, is because he leads you to water, but he doesn't teach you to drink. He lets you figure out what you need to do. And when you make the epiphany for yourself, it's 10 times more satisfying. And I have a distinct feeling, even sitting here right now, of what that felt like, because I felt it for myself and somebody's helped me get there.
Yeah, there's got to be a Zen cone somewhere, show me without telling me. And that's when it sticks in. Because when I was watching you row, you're actually reminding me of Hamish and Eric, the New Zealand pair. And I remember watching them row in the 2012 games. I literally cried when I watched them. Because I was like, this is, like, they have it, right? They have, like, close to what a perfect sweep stroke should be. And it was just so artful and powerful and quick and fluid, and it was just snappy. I don't know. So this is the magic of Dick. And, I want to go back into your history as athletes and learn more about your past, but we've kind of gotten into it pretty quickly. And so I want to talk about Dick Tonks. How long have you been training with him? And I want to dig a little bit more into what you've learned from him. And I've heard this before, that he's very quiet. He sets a hard program. He puts high demands on it. He's also takes a step back and has you figure it out within the context of the program. But what else?
I remember my first day showing up to Dick's practice, and I was showing up late because I had exams at UVic, and I remember asking around the boat, like around the men's team, like, so what's the workout? And they just said 20. And I'm like, so anything else I should know? And they're like, no, that's it. And usually walking in, there's like new coach for the men's rowing team, like anything I should be working on, anything. And the rowers couldn't give me anything. And I'm like, what should I be doing? And I go out on the water. I'm just seeing people row. And I'm like, is that really it? Like, we're just rowing. And then we just start going up and down the course by ourselves, like time trial style. And people were going fast, like so fast. And it was the first time I'd rowed in so long. So my hands weren't used to it. And I just remember there's blood everywhere. And I'm like, how are these people going faster than me? And I'm working so hard. And Dick didn't say a word to me. He didn't pull up to me. He didn't like, he was just off. He could have been a kilometer away. It didn't matter. He could have been like on the shore. Like, he just let us do the work amongst each other and just watching each other. And wow, that was like such a shock. I blew my hamstring that workout, and I had to go off for 2 weeks. Like I was in full shock. It was like a real head scratcher, like, what is happening? I'm like, is this every day now? Like, and now Dick sees me as like a guy who showed up for one session and watched me like limp off into the forest and like, goodbye. Who is this kid? I don't even need to know. And then, yeah. And now that was what I had to do. I was like, that's what everyone's doing now. And now we all got to do that. And then eventually I came back and like started getting in the mood. But that was such a shell shock. Oh my gosh.
So what year was that, Pat?
That was 2018, just start of 2018, I want to say.
2017 fall, I think.
2017 fall. Yeah.
You've done some juniors, under 23s. You did a world champs in 2017.
Yeah, I was in Florida.
Show up to, who was your coach before that, Pat?
Roger Meager.
Oh, Roger Meager.
Yeah. A lovely guy.
What'd you learn from Roger Meager?
He was just a crazy old man.
That's so harsh.
We loved each other. Like, it was a really good relationship and just super like honest, but like also like we could like throw little jabs at each other just like that and we'd be fine. And he was super understanding. And then when it was honest to talk, it was honest to talk. And he's a really good guy. I learned some things, and it was also under Terry Paul's program, and it was a good program.
So Terry Paul and Roger Meager were coaching you. So Terry Paul was writing the program, and then Roger Meager was your crew coach.
That's right.
Yeah. How about you, Max?
I was finishing up school at UBC, and so my little brother Aaron and I moved to the center in January of 2018.
Yeah.
And by that time, we kind of like, from my friends on the squad, I got a bit more of like a day-to-day sense of how things operated. And I mean, there was still that I had the exact same experiences that Pat, or that like people didn't share what was going on. Like you walked into the boat bay and what was written on the chalkboard was the workout, and you only knew the workout essentially the minutes before launching, which of course now we've learned is because Dick is taking in tons of feedback while watching us row, and he likes to be able to adapt based on what he thinks that we need. And that's his intent behind not revealing the workout until just before. And then as a byproduct too, you come prepared for anything, which is one day it was 20K, the next day is 28K, the next day is 5x1K at race pace. And you never really knew. And so every workout you were just ready to go. And you learned quickly the level of preparation that goes into being ready for each session and treating each session with importance. But I obviously tried to, like Patty, get an understanding for like what Dick was looking out for in the stroke. But I remember Aaron's like, I'm not going to say a word to this guy until he says a word to me. And I think he went like a month and a half before they even spoke to each other. And that's seeing each other every day, twice, 3 times a day. It irked people, that style, but his presence, and this is like something I'm sure, Adam, you could also share from your own experience, is that like when Mike Spracklin stands there, there's an aura about people like that in the sport of rowing that you just want to impress them. And they naturally bring the best out in you because of the way that they are. And even though it's a different style, you could just see that in the group, everyone's trying to find their way in the totem pole and find their place within the team. And it's like a daily process to try improving yourself. And you could see how Patty mentioned us the time trial style workouts. So in the morning, we'd all meet around the island on Elk Lake, which is at the one end of the 2K course. And he would send you off from in singles, slowest to fastest. And so every day he gave you the pecking order about who he thought was the slowest person and who he thought was the fastest. And based on the days of work, people would change. And as a lightweight, it was always encouraging to get sent after some heavyweight guys, to be like, he believes in you, your speed more, and he wants you to chase that person down and put pressure under that person. It made you go incredibly deep multiple times a day. And I'd never believed that I could do that until he just made you believe in yourself.
It's been said, great leadership requires distance. And that's what someone like Dick Tonks brings. There is a distance. You're not going to be his friend. You're not going to feel like you can get to truly know him and break down and connect and understand the deeper layers of who he is yet. And I never felt that way with Mike Spracklin when he was our coach. There were times when, especially in reflection, and now, that I've aged and gotten to know him more, he's got a very caring, endearing side to him. When they're the coach, they're also under a lot of pressure themselves, and they put a lot of pressures to make sure that the athletes have the best chance that they can have. And that pressure that they put on themselves as coaches can manifest itself in this quiet composure, and it becomes very contagious, and it really impacts the culture of the training. Did you feel that it was something like that, or it is something like that with Dick and the training environment he sets up?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. He didn't have to do much to get us to work. He would kind of use each other. Us trying to prove to ourselves, and I guess also prove to him, and everyone was doing the same job. And to do that, you have to beat people. So everyone, and I mean everyone, was just trying to beat each other up. So lots of blood. It was crazy. Great experience, but that's how we worked hard.
Well, that competitive atmosphere where you're trying to beat each other up, there's got to be an element of collegiality that's built, but there's got to be a wide range of emotions. Especially, you're the two remainders of the of the Hunger Games, right? You're hungry because you're lightweights, and there's a lot of you that have been whittled away. So you would have had friendships and relationships, but now you became a pair. So talk me through that, because I know that you, Max, you rode the 4 in Rio in 2016, and so there's obviously a number of athletes who probably were going through the ringer who wanted to be part of the lightweight men's double. When the lightweight men's 4 was eliminated, the women's 4 was brought in to bring gender parity into the sport. All of a sudden there's fewer seats. Walk me through what it's like to be, you're kind of in a group of lightweight men, and you're all vying for 2 seats.
Yeah, Patty nailed it with like the competition, because the general trend was AM in the singles, and then PM we would line up for 10 by 2K, rate 18, and you would get to go in the double. And it was like bloodbath in the morning, like everybody out for blood on everybody. And then you walk into the practice.
Was it open rate in the single, or was there weight cap?
Rate cap, yeah. And you would get called out to, in the afternoons when we were going on stagger, you get called out pretty aggressively, but in the mornings Dick would just take notes of who was going over rate.
Just quietly.
He wouldn't tell you. Yeah, you wouldn't tell you for sure. But then you get thrown in these lineups, right? And it's like the guy that pissed you off like to the nth end in the morning. Now you're in a double with him, and you have this kind of hilarious fake in some ways, but then also out of necessity, like you need this person to believe that you are the fastest person. I need to prove this to him in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I need to find a way to work together to be the fastest double in the afternoon. And it was because there were I'd say like 5 of us pretty solidly in there, and so. Cool. Patty, I'm sure you can talk a little about because school for Patty was still in full-time school at this point.
This was, what year was this?
2018, I guess, like winter and spring. Because how Patty and I came into the double is almost like, it's a pretty hilarious story too, because I think between Aaron and myself, we were most competitive with Pat, and he had the ability to piss us off the most.
And let's just so people listening, Aaron's your brother, is that right?
Yes, Aaron's my little brother, yeah.
And you've rowed together.
Yeah, we rowed together at school. He was actually the non-traveling spare for the boat in Rio, just because he was just a really good young talent, really strong on the erg. Erg is his specialty. But we rowed together at UBC, and of course, as 2 brothers, we had a dream of rowing together on the international stage, but the dream is only as satisfying as if you earn it. And Patty stood in the way of that.
Breaking up the brothers.
No, but if I'm being truly honest, like we always saw Pat as a threat. But like what's hilarious is like Aaron throughout the qualifier is like Patty and I, we consider ourselves like brothers now. And Aaron would even consider Patty like in that same triangle, that mutual respect and admiration and love. And I think it's just so funny because where it came from and where it started to where it's come in such a short, that from 2018 to January to now, it's like almost 4 years, a quadrennial. And I think it's crazy how a relationship can change and build and grow.
Yeah, from such deep competition to cooperation. It's like this co-opetition or comparation. We're making words up here. Row Tokyo. So keep walking me through this. So there's 5 lightweights in the mix, top speed in Canada. One of them's Max's brother. one of them's Pat. You're beating each other up in the morning, and then you're getting mixed up, putting in doubles. So then how does it move from there to knowing that Max and Pat are Canada's double?
There was supposed to be a singles race off. Top 4 singles make it into doubles matrix. Top double gets to go to the first World Cup in in Belgrade. Aaron got really sick, so he was medically out, and so it just became the 4: Taylor, Josh, Patrick, and myself. And we did head-to-head 1Ks. I think we ended up doing like 13. It was just an unnamed number of 1Ks. But because Patty had been in school, he had done very little double rowing. And I think Patty lost every single head-to-head double race.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everybody walked away from that being like, whoever lost with Patty the least is the winner. Because it was like, nobody was like, we went so fast, we destroyed everybody. It was like, I had a good piece with Patty. Next piece with Max and Patty went together, and they just got destroyed by 12 seconds. So game over for him, And so we came to the boathouse like after all that was done, and it was just like Max and Patrick go out in double, and Taylor and Josh are out in a double. And so we push off the dock and we're rowing towards Hampshire Beach. And I said, well, Patty, I guess we lost. And he was like, yeah, I guess we did.
It was like a smile, just like, yep.
Yeah, but it was funny, like very quickly after that, they wanted to have 2 doubles training to keep the competition high.
Yeah.
But something in our and then Adam, I'm sure you can attest to this, in some partnerships, there's no speakable reason as to why you click, but naturally you're just meant to be together. This is something that Aaron and I battled throughout our doubles rowing career, but Patty and I, in the next probably 48 hours, we found just like a crazy amount of speed, kind of out of nowhere. And that's the speed that kind of we've had ever since, and have been nurturing kind of ever since.
When it clicks, whether it's power application or body movements or something spiritual, that's something that's deeper, that's even harder to define, personality wise. So there's a clicking. So you thought that you were the second double, and the other double was supposed to be going on, and so you're training together, and then did you just start beating the other double all the time?
Yeah, I would attest to that. Yeah, we would do those lining up 2K runs in the afternoon. We just knew what to do. We would just get off quick. I was in stroke at the time too, so it was a different combo, and we would just get up and keep going. We just knew we were fast, and we're like, okay, let's show people we're fast. And these were team runs, so we would have 4s coming at us. We'd have different lineups, and we just wanted to consistently show that we are ahead, we're doing it, and look at us. Drawing attention to us, which sometimes in that environment isn't the best. We just wanted to show people, and Dick kind of saw that. And eventually he wanted us to race again.
Yeah, and eventually he said, like, he pulled us out into the patio of the Spracken room at the Elk Lake Boathouse, and he said, oh, you lightweights always make things difficult. Monday morning, 2K, starting at 11 a.m., weighing at 9 a.m., winner gets to go to the World Cup. And we were just like, holy crap, this is an opportunity. Like,
he told you that morning, and then you had to race that day?
No, that was Friday. That was Friday or Saturday.
Okay.
And so we had the weekend, but we had, because he had to give us a heads up for the weigh-in. That's always a caveat. So we had this race off, and we were like, Patty, we had like, because we'd been talking to each other, being like, it's going to be probably later in summer when we get to really show our speed, because we're the number 2 double. But then we had this chance, and so that Monday comes, and the island to Point One, quite a nice tailwind, but a tailwind that was turning into like whitecaps by the bottom 250.
Okay.
Yeah. And so a stiff tailwind. And I remember during the race, we like got out to a length, and then we had the length, and we just like kept trying to break it open, and we're unable to get any separation. And slowly the other double put the pressure on, and to the point where in the second half, I think we caught a little crab under pressure. They got to level, panic set in, caught another crab, they blew it out, and then they won. And so to me, we walked away from that being like, we're not ready to race internationally because we clearly couldn't prove it under pressure. And we thought that was it. And the next day at practice, Dick came up to us and said, Max is now going to stroke and Patty's going to go into the bow. And that was probably the biggest positive change that we made.
Why was Pat in stroke seat first? And then why did it get reversed? Was there any justification given by Dick or by Jeremy?
It was us. Yeah. Because as a starboard guy, when I swept, I just rode bow like all the time. And so, and I mean, Adam, I'm sure you picked this up too, is that like you just learn how to pick up somebody else's rhythm. You're more malleable than your portside counterparts, I always said, at least. I could match the rhythm of, at the time, whatever 3 other port sides that were rowing in the lightweight group, and each one was a little bit different. And so I figured as a bowman, I had that experience from the pairs to be able to try and match Patty's rhythm. But Patty is way better than that, than doing that than I am. And I'm glad. And I think that Dick saw my like intensity or kind of like my drive was better suited to contrast Patty from in front rather than from behind.
A huge thank you to our title sponsor, Nicola Wealth, the gold standard of investment advice for affluent families, foundations, and institutions across North America. Nicola Wealth is also the premier partner of the Can Fund 150 Women, where women support female athletes and each other to achieve excellence. Nicola Wealth also has their own podcast, The Wealth Exchange. This show is full of great interviews and inspires you to achieve your aspirations beyond wealth. Providing access to experts, topics explore leadership impact, wealth planning and investing, philanthropy, and building better businesses. Listen to The Wealth Exchange with a quick search for Nicola Wealth on your favorite podcast listening app. You've just lost the competition, so the other double has gone to the World Cup and is going to compete. You're staying back, but the lineup has been switched up. So what happens after this?
After that, we train. We're like, oh, we got beat again. This kind of is unfortunate, but let's keep doing it. And we a little emotional after, just kind of like not fun with getting beat. And we just kept training. And then we did our training, working hard, and another person in the other double had a little bit of a little injury, so they weren't able to row for a bit. We're like, oh, that's odd. Well, that doesn't mean anything. We lost, like fair is fair, and we'll just keep training. And there was a race series coming up, and it was in preparation for World Cup 1 in Belgrade. We thought like, okay, well, maybe we'll get to go up against them. Doesn't mean anything. Like, we're just like, we'll race them. Like, they'll still get to go. And the guy got back into the double a little quickly, and they didn't have a lot of time to train before the race series. And just like, yeah, let's just race them. Like, no thought of like politics or like if what will happen as a result. Like, we'll just race them. And we beat them 3 out of 3 times, and we're like, yeah, that's that cool. Like, kind of thought we could do that. And so we beat them 3 times, and then we had a meeting with Dick and a few other people, and he kind of said like, well, you've proven me wrong, and you beaten them 3 out of 3 times, so I think you guys deserve to go. And we're like, whoa, like something actually happened. Like, we're going, and we have to like weigh in, and it's a week out. Like, I don't know if my body's ready.
How many kilograms would you be over at this point in time?
3 kilos, I would say, 3 or 4, and that's like 8 pounds.
Yeah, that's a lot.
8, 10. Yeah, to do in a week. I thought it was got to be a crazy weight management, but it wasn't bad at all. I've certainly had worse.
Really? So you just cut out fiber and lower calories and drink more water?
Yeah, there was a whole orchestrated little thing we had to do. Lots of sweat, yeah.
Yeah, that was probably one of my bigger sweats, for sure.
Yeah.
Luckily, there was a nice there was this hilarious spa in the basement of our hotel in Belgrade, and I had to sweat like 2 and a bit kilos in this spa tub, listening to my Tiger Woods audiobook. And yeah, I have a deep memory of that little bit of suffering that was very uncomfortable.
In a like in a hot tub.
In a very, very, very hot
Very
tub. Yeah.
hot. Very, very hot.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So you sweat it out. No, I know lightweights, they do enemas and that kind of thing to get to weight. Do you ever do that?
No, just the
No,
like you
no.
mentioned, the low res. The low res usually you can knock off like 800 grams.
Yeah.
If we were sitting around 73, you get like down to 72.2, and then you could sweat out 2.2 without having a performance loss. You just need to make sure you're super on top of getting your hydration back as soon as you're done your weigh-in 2 hours out.
So do you use like sodium citrate or other different electrolyte combinations to rehydrate more effectively? Or is it just like E-load?
Yeah, the E-load is great because it's high sodium, high potassium, and has like tons of carbohydrates. So obviously, when you put back, you want to try and get 150% of what you lost to be hydrated. So you need to put back like 3 liters. If you put back 3 liters of liquid, it's obviously tough to get food down. So if you jam a ton of carbohydrate in your liquid, then that can make it like making sure you have enough energy to get through your race.
Yeah. And then you had a decent race, right? You missed out on the podium. You got fourth in that World Cup.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet. In our heat, actually, we beat the Irish, and I think that shocked us as much as it shocked them. They weren't obviously on their top form, but to us it was just bonkers. Like these two just won a silver medal at the Olympics, and to us, like we're kind of nobodies, and we weren't even going to this World Cup until 7 days before it started.
So you beat the Irish, and great guys, by the way.
Yeah,
Really good personality. I think they did a lot of positive things for the sport. Just humble, down to earth, connected, have a lot of fun with the sport, don't take themselves too seriously.
they are the most open people on the international racing circuit. They say hello to everybody and anybody. There's no ego whatsoever. Just in salt of the earth people. They're an easy boat to root for.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, in our category, a little tougher, but
Yeah, well, it's nice to beat them, and you can beat them and
Yeah.
have fun with it too. It's nice.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
nice when you have crews you can beat and then go out for beers afterwards. So you beat, and then you went to World Cup, the third World Cup that year in 2018. Another fourth place finish.
Oh yeah, Patty, how many fourths you got?
I got a lot of fourths. I have like 6th or 7th missed podiums. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. No bragging or lots of bragging.
First loser.
The first loser. The happiest person has gold medal, and then the second happiest person gets the bronze medal because they actually got on the podium.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The curse of the fourth place. Let's hope you can
Yeah.
break that in Tokyo.
Mhm.
And then you tanked. Let's talk about that. You freaking fell off what happened? 15th place, World Championships 2018.
That was in Belgrade, right? Yeah.
No, I was in
No, Bulgaria. Yeah. Training was pretty good. We were coming in, like, do our thing, race here a few times, lots of really hot, really, really hot. And we were going for the quarter, and we just had this like big gust of wind, and it just started getting crazier and windier, and everyone's starting to look frantic. And I'm like, wow, this is going to be a crazy windy headwind course. We got into the gates. We're like, we're still doing this, and we will go down the course. We know, like, we can't really think about this. Let's do our race, do our job, and we cruise lane 6 and 5 just ran away from us, and races stopped right after ours.
Yeah, to give perspective, Adam, the 24th ranked crew was in lane 6 in our race, and they had 5 seconds on us by the 500-meter mark.
Oh, wow. So a very unfair course.
Yeah, it was just like a
Yeah.
crazy cross head, and lane 6 and 5 had a tremendous advantage. The racing was canceled, so after they started the first lightweight men's double quarterfinal, they had to run through quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, and then once they finished quarter 4, they canceled racing for the rest of the day.
Oh.
because they saw after quarter one, essentially lane 6 won or came second.
Every single time.
For us, it was most because it was like the crew that barely made it out of the rep just to make it into the quarters almost wins our quarterfinal against the then bronze medalists of the whole event, barely beat them. But what we will say is the Belgians were beside us and they found a way to qualify, and all those top 4 crews found a way to qualify even though the conditions were shit. We just knew that, yes, the number was shitty. I always kind of think that the B final and the C final should have been switched based on their ranking, and the times even kind of show that. Even still, we knew that that wasn't a performance that was going to get us into the A final, and so we still needed to do work. And there's no need to blame the wind because you signed up for an outdoor sport, so you agree to participate in the conditions that they deem are fair.
This is true. And anything can happen. And even still, I'm going to be a bit of an a-hole on this one, but you were in the C final. You didn't even win the C final.
No, that's no, it's exactly right.
So what happened?
Yeah. Well, the 2 crews, like it's kind of like I said, like I really believed the 2 crews won. The French and the Germans. The French had the Olympic gold medalist in the boat, and the Germans went on to come second at Worlds the next year.
Okay.
So it's like they were 2 class crews. We knew that that was actually a pretty good race. I think it was the fastest. We went like 6:09.
Okay.
I believe it was a Canadian. I don't quote me, but
Yeah,
I were either really close to the fastest lightweight double time all time for Canada in that final, and then our fastest time was in that final. So there were some positive takeaways from a shitty situation, but for example, Matt Kopp and Taylor Perry raced the pair, the event that was supposed to go on schedule afterwards. They were on the warm-up course waiting to race after we came down for our quarter. Their quarter got canceled, moved to the next day. Taylor and Mac come 4th at the World Championships. That's a boat that we tied on Prague all summer doing the pieces. So I think we had a sense that where we belonged, we had to understand that you learn a lot from your losses and your failures. You learn more from those things than you do from your successes. And we needed to not let it shake our belief in Dick, our belief in the program, and what we were doing. It wasn't a panic switch, but it was more of an awareness that what it requires to be world class in the lightweight double is you don't just win on the best day. You need to be able to bring world class on your worst day.
Yeah, you're mitigating against the lower level.
That is kind of exactly how the qualifier went. The 2021 qualifier, we had some serious issues with steering with our boat the entire time we were in Europe. And we knew that we weren't going to let it become an issue. We weren't going to let it be our defining memory. We were going to qualify despite having steering issues.
And so was it an issue? Like, was it an issue with the equipment, or was it just an issue with...
The hull was slightly different than the hull we had at home. And just Philippe's in general are just like very tricky boats. And we didn't learn that we had a different hull until we got to Lucerne and Philippe looked at it the day before racing. So we'd kind of been tweaking with things constantly in Freeborg where we were training, but there was no buoy line, and the body of water in Freeborg was very difficult to sense whether or not the boat was tracking straight or whether we were steering. This is the other thing too, is I think after a week of dealing with steering issues, your body starts like auto adjusting to steering, and especially in doubles where what one guy does to one blade affects the other person's opposite blade in the opposite reaction. It was something we had to kind of figure out and just make it as manageable as possible so that we could let our like rhythm and racing and our strength show as much best it could on the race course.
I would say also, like, the day before our semi and final, we did 20K of fine tuning. And I don't think a lot of crews do that. We were going out constantly in between races to try and like do a lap and see, is this right? No, go back in, wait for racing to stop. Is this right? Oh, maybe. And then go back in. And eventually we got like some sort of common ground where we could have a bit of freedom with the boat. It wasn't optimal. It was far from optimal, but it was the best we were going to get. And we just did what we could to make it work.
Yeah, well, and it showed. You made it work.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so you like contrast that experience to, to 2018, and there you go.
2018 versions of ourselves don't qualify for the Olympics because we become obsessed with the rig and blaming out external factors that aren't going to help contribute to success.
Okay, let's go more into that. I love this conversation. So 2018, what changed between 2018 and now? You're blaming the equipment. It's the equipment's fault. What else would you be doing?
I think blaming each other. That was something that we've learned. That was maybe the best advice from Lindsay Jennerick, Olympic silver medalist in the lightweight women's double in Rio. Her and I talked before I left, and she said, she's like, when you get to Europe, your boat isn't going to go straight. And it's funny because you laugh, but like it's crazy because when we were at the course in Lucerne, like you look and between rows, there are 3 doubles down on stretchers at any time, and coaches going over them. And Jeremy is just bringing to light like doubles are just like a super tricky boat when it comes to rigging. Like in a quad, your station is your station. You can tweak to be more comfortable because the boat has a set that is not going to be so changed by one person. But the double is just like each person's tiny change really affects the other, and it's not like a single. Like Trevor can just be like, I feel like this, I'm just going to change, and then boom, away he goes. And in an 8, you have your station, and your station is what you own. And so Lindsay said she's experienced it over her career tons of times, and she's like, my goal for you is that know that it's going to happen, know that it's not going to be perfect, know that it's going to take time to become perfect, but throughout that whole process, don't let your frustration turn you against Patrick. And similar for Patrick, don't let his frustration turn him against you. Stay united, stay open and honest, bring Jeremy into the conversation, and try not to let emotion dictate logical thinking.
That's great advice. It's amazing to hear how you have actively connected with athletes from past generations. You've had more experience in, having gone to Rio. Did you take the impetus on yourself to reach out to Lindsay, to reach out to Liam?
Yeah, your buddy, Rob Wiedemeyer, like coached me in high school, and after that experience, I was like, man, he's just saved me years of figuring it out for myself based on a couple conversations. He's like, well, you're gonna tap out from my stuff because my stuff's not going to be as good for you because you need to find what's new. And Ben Rutledge started, and Barney coached me for Canada Summer Games, and then I was tapped into 2 more alumni with incredible rowing careers who have a breadth of knowledge and were coaching me. And then you're like, holy crap, they just answered and gave me so many things to think about. And so I think I just realized early on that the willingness of those to give back, of those who have kind of gone before you, is way higher than you may think. And all it takes is a small ask. And especially, I think, in Rowing Canada, the alumni, they love to help. Freaking Wetzel's messaging every group at the qualifier because he's just like so cued in to what's going on. And he literally just like wants to be there in the freaking hotel room talking to you. And it's just, it makes it feel incredibly powerful that you're not alone and that people believe in you and what you're doing because they understand what it means to row for Canada, and that is special in itself, and that other nations don't get to do that because they don't have the history and culture in the sport of rowing that we do. I tell, whenever we get a chance to talk to young athletes, I say, like, take the time, reach out. Like, you have no idea how willing people are to share and to provide advice and answer questions and be open to learning.
Well, and there is something to be said about that. If you want to create a program and you want to have something like Rowing Canada that where knowledge is passed down, you need to have that communication between generations. And there is some overlap when each quadrennial there's a big turnover in athletes, and there's usually some that are left over. But there's a lot that are lost. And there's some, there'll be some like Jake Wetzel who are very proactive in reaching out, but there'll be others who also have lots of information that you wouldn't even realize. And I even think back to my own personal experience when I was just starting up. There was a guy by the name of Henry Herring out of Montreal. He was a great pair rower, and I think he'd gone to Sydney. And so much of our stroke for our Canadian 8 was based on his insights into technique. And it was exactly what Liam had described to you in that exact same epiphany that you said you had, that long, light, quick stroke. And a lot of that came from Henry Herring, especially. There's another guy who rode with Jeff Powell, who was the stroke of our World Championship 8 in 2002, 2003, Olympic 8. He did a lot of rowing with Henry and took a lot from him, which then obviously I absorbed through Jeff. And you have to figure out how to pass that down. And it's beautiful when it can come either through conversation, even better when it can come time in a boat where you can actually feel it, where someone can say, no, yeah, no, yeah, when you're doing like each stroke. And then once you've felt it, it's like a golf swing. And you have that perfect swing and you hit the ball and all of a sudden you can't repeat it.
Yeah.
And then I want to get back to it. It's like you have that perfect stroke or the perfect piece and you realize you want it. I'm just amazed at at your ability to pull out the resources from these alumni, and you've obviously been integrating them, and it's showing in the way that you're showing up and even coming on, in this year. So that's really exciting to see. So let's go back to World Championships 2019 Olympic qualifiers. Was it the top 8 qualify for the Olympics?
7.
Top 7.
Top 7. So you had to win the B final. You had another 4th place finish in 2019 in the World Cup. Come to the World Champs. Tell me about that, because that must have been disappointing. And I'm going to tell you a story too.
Yeah, I love that.
I forget. I'm trying to remember when this was. So I'd taken 2005 off. In 2006, I'd gone to Eton, England. I'd been in an 8, and it was a piece together of some guys in who had won bronze in the 4 in Gifu 2005, the year before. And we come out in the 8, and we're going down the course, and we didn't even make the A final in Eton. And so I was disappointed. So at the end of the day, I was like, okay, we didn't make the A final. Let's just go down. Let's win the B final, and we can be top 7. And we go out on that race, and the boat is heavy, and it's sluggish, and there was just a lack of motivation, and just the fire wasn't there. You didn't have the crew alignment, the crew energy. And we go down the course, and we get beaten by the Swiss in the 8. Yeah, beaten by the Swiss in the 8. And I remember just being like so exhausted at the end, and then having so much rage. Like I had so much rage, and it was maybe like 3 or 4 minutes after the race where it's just like it just started processing it, and I couldn't get it out, and I was just like, what the heck is going on? And then I just started to flip out, and I started like shaking my oar in the oar lock. I was just shaking it, and I was screaming, and I was swearing, and I just was like ramming the oar, and I just wanted to destroy the rigger and the oar, and I completely blasted the collar and the oar lock, and I bent the rigger, and then everyone else was just kind of like sitting there, kind of like looking, like kind of like watching me as I raged.
You gotta ask Max about this a little bit. I think you and Max will get along great then.
So was there rage after a recognition that I didn't qualify for the Olympics? You have obviously had expectations of what you could have done, or...
Yeah, so like for me, this was my first Olympic qualifying event and had heard like this is quite a different regatta, and I was like, okay, it's different. And just walk in like open minded, like me, just simply walking in, just do the job, and it was different. Holy cow! I very very emotional. Like I thought I knew emotions at an event, going to like world champs and everything. But this one, there was like girls crying and running around. It was just like someone died. Like, oh my goodness. And it wasn't from our team. Like these were people I didn't know. I had never met, but I could just see this raw emotion all over their face. And I was just like, wow. And that kind of set the tone, and like the air was just very like things happen here. And then we did the heat pretty good. Did the quarter pretty good again, like going against some top crews. And then we got to the semi, and like the commentator quoted like, this is the semi from hell. And it was like all the medal contenders, like I don't know how, but it was like Germany, Ireland, Norway, Australia, and us. Yeah. And this was, I don't know if all three of the medalists were from our heat. Just like it was going to be very very difficult to get through to the A final. And I remember just saying like, well, why don't we just try and wing it, the 1,000 to go, just like let's go at the 1,000, like let's just try something new and just surprise people and just blast off, and we did that, and it went nowhere. It was just like two guys rowing separately almost. So then we were in the B final, like far out behind the pack, and it's like, okay, this is going to be a tough race. Like you have to come first. Don't get too caught up in the result, but like let's not think about a last chance qualifier. Let's just be in the present. But it's a one through, and we did our race. We did race very hard, and we finished, and we didn't get it. Belgium was the people who came first, and then Australia, and then us. And it was quite tight, and there was like, to my right, like excitement, splashing, lots of joy, and then everyone else finishing behind, and it was just like kind of quiet, and it's just kind of settling in. We did my acknowledgement for me was like a pretty solid race for us, but it wasn't fast enough, and I didn't know what to think. I'm like, what does that mean now? My mind was blank. I'm like, I guess last chance, but I didn't know at the time like what that meant. So it was quite an experience.
Yeah, I would say there was like, I agree with Pat. Like that race was pretty good. We executed really well, and like we went deep, like we like physiologically pushed ourselves. And Pat and I didn't know essentially how we finished until it was over. Like your blinders are on, and you're just like tunnel vision. You have very little awareness, and then I just had a very like numb sensation. As somebody who can have a pretty bad temper, the anger like didn't come right away. It came like much later.
Like when you were off the water, or
No, like honestly, it was like when I got home, I had just this like a numb sensation and numb like inability to talk about rowing and the Olympics and everything. I know luckily like the one thing was nice is like Aaron was racing the single, and so I had like my brother, like my best friend there, who like understands and wasn't as emotionally wrapped up, so he could at least provide like just a distraction. But I wasn't able to really unpack any of that emotion until I got back to Canada. By that time, I had more mental power to process. The feeling that I have is powerful and shouldn't be discarded, but it should be like focused and used productively. Remember what this feels like and use it in the future. The simple line is that you just weren't fast enough. It's not worth going to the Olympics if you qualify out of like a stroke of fate and luck. What makes the Olympics so special is that it's like just so unattainable for so many people that to qualify and to achieve it requires diving deep into yourself to know where your limits are. I think it was important for both the Patty and I to go through that experience. And I just hear your conversation about that race in Eden. And I mean, fast forward 3 years, you guys are Olympic gold medalists. Like, I had imagined that feeling had never left you.
It was more channeled fear than channeled rage. After having come back after that very disappointing experience at Eton, I kind of came last minute. We had the 8 hadn't really been formed. Jake Wetzel was rowing the double with Derek Porter, who's Canada's old single sculler. They were trying to make a go at it. I flew out to, where were we? Linz, Austria. Rob Wiedemeyer was in the 8 with us, your old coach. We won the World Cup there, but we had a really sluggish start. It was kind of like the antithetical race. Start slow, come from behind, speed up to the finish, which was unlike it. And there I was sitting in 3 seat, and my back had tweaked out when I flew over there. So I was sitting up the entire row. I had no layback. And so you had Marty Cross. It's like, hey, the Canadians have changed up their style. They do not have the same layback. Well, yeah, it's 3 seat has a has a disc blown.
He's just white knuckling it down the course.
Yeah. So, well, there's so much. It's such a different boat class, the 8, than the double, because you have many other people in that boat that you're leaning on, and you have faith in. I would say I was very angry in the moment, and I definitely had fear that I wouldn't win. My back, I had like bad back injuries. And so I was just kind of going through this leave no stone unturned. And I was living on a floating home on Fisherman's Wharf in Victoria at the time. And there's this hippie lady who came up to me. And I was trying all these different healing modalities. I'd be at physiotherapy, once, twice a day, more massage therapy, chiropractic, all this stuff. And she comes up and says, I have a friend and she is a super healer. She has this process called, body talk. And you need to go talk to her and she's going to heal your body. And I'm like, yes. Yes. Right. I'm like, yeah, I'll go see her. And so I go see this woman, and she ended up being like a Susan Stenson, for body talk. And she ended up being kind of like a spiritual advisor and like a mini guru for me, leading into the Olympics. Like she would create this one thing called a performance energy field. This is kind of a crazy story, but she went into my body, and the whole idea is that your body has emotions, and it has memories, and it has feelings. And it turns out that I had weird feelings with relationship to my father and to somewhere else, and it was trapped up in my back. And she was testing my muscles, and she ended up releasing it and saying, okay, now I've kind of released this tension, because emotional trauma can be held in the body through injury. And so she's, okay, we need to remove all this emotional trauma. And we worked through that. And then she said, do you want to do this performance energy shield? I know you're going to the Olympics. I'm like, sure.
Yes.
Right? It's like, okay, How long will it take? About 30 minutes. Okay. Yep. To be honest, I didn't tell anyone about this. And it was something I just kept to myself because it's kind of weird. But at the same point in time, I was like, I put all my faith in it, all my belief in it, because there is power in belief. There is that psychological side to Olympic preparation for competition. You need to make sure that everything's in alignment, that that you can put in alignment. And so she started saying, okay, tell me through the races. I said, there's the heat, there's the repechage, and there's the final. And so she goes through and she does this body talk thing. She says, you know what? You're going to feel the energy field kick in 20 minutes before the race, and then it will turn off when you finish the race. So she goes through the heat, and she says, what's the next race? And I guess it's the repechage. Repechage? Yeah, repechage. And she didn't really know what a repechage was. So she starts tapping away, and she's like, there's something wrong here. He said, just 1 second, I'm going to do this again. She does it again. There's something wrong here. It's like, I can't go do an energy shield for the repechage. Are you sure you're going to be racing the repechage? And I said, well, if we win the heat, we're not going to do the repechage. He says, well, you're going to win the heat then. So let's right. So let's go do the final.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And so that she goes and she does this, and she does it for the final, like tap, 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 muscle test, doing her questions and all these kinds of things. And she sets up this energy shield. And through the process, she's saying things, and she's a bit of a poet and a philosopher herself. And she said this thing that you can't be going there out of rage or out of anger, and it has to be out of love, because there's exponentially more power in love and opportunity than there is out of rage and anger. The vengeance story is a powerful one, and it's a powerful archetype that exists within our psyche, but it has its limits, and it has its emptiness at the end of the pathway. And what she said, you need to be going there for opportunity, and you need to set this goal, and then you need to let go of it. You need to release all attachment to the goal, because your attachment to the goal and your attachment to the outcome will actually get in the way of you achieving that goal. That was something that I just kept coming back to. It's my intention to win. It moved from being a goal to an intention. And there is an incredible power in holding the intention in my mind, body, spirit complex. And the energy shield thing was kind of crazy too. Because we go through it, and then you show up to the Beijing Olympic final, to the heats, and we get out, and we get in the 8. Obviously, I'm thinking back to the energy shield, just in my mind, right? We're going through the warm-ups, the nerves are bubbling, or your body's boiling, and the boat just feels like crap. It's almost like I'm picturing like Malcolm's giant head bobbing back and forth, and blades are slapping, and that's just a joke. But Malcolm does have a big head.
It's very large.
Yeah. We had to get special hats made for him. But the boat was just it just felt horrible. I thought the energy shield was going to show up. I was like, oh wow, whatever. Then you push it out of your mind, and then we're flopping around, and all of a sudden, boom, crack! It's lightning, and the umpire comes up. He's like, "Rowers, go dock. Rowers, go back dock." And race was delayed. And we had to do the race the following day because of thunderstorm and lightning delay. And then 20 minutes before the heat, everything felt like it set up like a rock. The heat was crazy too, because we put our bow in the boot, and Kevin Light had this strategy where he'd take strokes right at the start, and he'd the bow into the boot that held the bow, so that when the boot came down, we would have just the tiniest amount of forward momentum off the start from that boot. But what had happened, and we tested this and tried this on the course beforehand, but that night with the rain and the thunderstorm, it had risen the water levels an inch or two on the basin. And so when we did this in the heat, and Kevin pushed the bow against the boot, it actually slid up over the boot and fell down, and it popped off the bow ball like a bottle cap, fell into the water.
Oh, wow.
So all of a sudden we're sitting there with the bow ball off, and Kevin's like, guys, I just snapped off the bow ball. So we wave up, we talk to the umpires. The umpires say, this is fine, go down the race. You just have to finish. You just have to go straight to the dock, because it's unsafe if you accidentally run into someone. The whole purpose of the bow ball is it's the Silk and Lauman effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Because she got rammed into by a German pair, and it snapped her leg. But had they had a bow ball in the tip, the boat wouldn't have done as much damage. We go out the race. We get about 500 meters into the race, so past the breakage point, Because, if you have breakage in the first 250 meters or 400 meters, you can call breakage and the race will stop. So we're past the breakage point, and then the Aussies rudder brakes. So the Aussies they're to our left, so to the starboard, there's a rudder brakes, and their boat starts charging towards us. And so I see it, and the bow's coming right towards Kyle, like right between Kyle and I. I'm in 7 seat, Kyle's in stroke seat, coming right towards us, and it's going to ram into our boat. Kyle obviously sees it. Everyone in the boat sees it. Kyle is panting. He says to Brian, he's like, "Brian, behind you." And Brian looks behind him, and he just says, 5 strokes now. And everyone's just like, they've been going for a couple strokes now, seeing the boat coming towards us, and everyone just put on 5 really hard strokes. It was really, there was a lot of power that went into those 5 strokes. And we launched forward, and then the Aussies kind of snuck just behind the stern of our boat. We get to the finish. We won the heat and, comfortably, and we felt kind of comfortable with it. And it was just like, this is the Olympics. Anything can freaking happen.
Yeah. I remember watching that, Adam, as a kid, watching TV.
Yeah. So that's, this is going to be your experience. And I've been talking for a lot. I'm supposed to be interviewing you guys.
Oh, this is great. I love that.
I think one of the reasons why this conversation is so cool is because I feel like we get to pick up things from you as well.
Hopefully you can. And this is the thing. I guess we were on the idea of anger and how the anger of the loss, it's good to fuel the training, but I don't know that it's the best thing to fuel the racing.
I'm glad you said that, Adam, because it's not like that when we race, because we've learned that, especially I've learned what makes the best for our partnership is an eerie calmness in the warm-up and in the start gates. And that's when we thrive at our best. Being in the moment and being prepared to set yourselves up to control what you can control, to have your best possible performance that you are capable of, and trusting in that and trusting in your partner. And those are the things that we use for racing. But I more so mean like when you have that doubt that invariably creeps in training when you're mentally not able to function at such a high capacity. For me, I've always used that as a simple switch to make sure that I do the right thing in training.
Yeah.
Be like, don't let yourself off the hook, because you're not going to make it easy, because you know that you need to push yourself to get to a place where you can be calm in the start gates because you're confident in what you and Patrick can do. So that obviously it just takes time.
Well, and that's a good insight. And I want to dig into training too. And I want to hear about some of like the darker days. I'm going to tell another story. There's this old guy, Tom Hirschmiller. He was in the 4. We had like one of these, we had big time trial, went over his house, and we were sitting around, we were having a beer because we didn't have like training the next day. And he was sitting there, and it was in the dredges of winter. It's like February or something. And he pulls up one of these lined pieces of paper, and he shows it to me. And it's got writing all from the top to the bottom, and then on the back. He's like, I wrote this note for myself so that next Olympic cycle, when I have the urge to come back and do this again, I will never do it again. I hate myself. I hate my life. This is awful. This is, why do I do this? Why do I put myself through this? Take me into one or two of those moments of despondency in winter training.
There's a huge energy going out to it. You're thinking about, this really blows. This sucks. Wow, I could be sleeping in on a Saturday. And there's a lot of energy at the start of practice. Like, it's pouring rain. You're super, like, the spandex there's layers and layers of spandex. You can hardly move. We got to perform on a piece, 10K, time trial format against Kai and Conlon, freaks of nature. And and this blows. Like, that's just the thing that keeps coming in your head. Like, this sucks. This is horrible. And you're cold. You're trying to like heat up the body. But anyway, like at a point, you're just like, it's going to happen. Like, regardless of how you feel, this is it. This is how it's going to happen. And it doesn't matter, like, regardless of your idea. So why don't you just make the idea like, okay, let's just break it down. Like, let's heat up the body. And after that, like, it's just kind of gun ho. Like, you're through. And once the first 5 strokes happen, it's all gone. There's no weather hurting your head. There's no energy going out to other expenses. It's just a lot of energy being wasted at the start. And then once you get going, I think there's no issue there. And there's definitely some dark days after the workout. It's like, did that even happen? Why was I freaking out so much? And that's kind of like bringing it back when it happens again. You just think that at the end, it's not even going to matter. Like, this has happened before. You've dealt with this. And how do you respond after? Like, you know that 5 strokes in, it's all going to go away.
It's fear, really. And I don't know what we're afraid of, especially in Olympic training, but like action is the cure for fear. And doubt creeps in when you have the time to think, when everything's moving just a little bit slower. And you're right, it doesn't come in when you're in the middle of the practice. It comes in when you wake up, your alarm clock goes off, you're dragging yourself down, or it's after the practice. You've been losing pieces for a week or 2 weeks or months, enduring an injury.
Yeah, I think like I'm just such a competitive person that a lot of times that takes over. And it's funny when you say action and what action can do. I'd say like the hardest moments in this whole quadrennial of training were fall of 2018. We had like there was a segment where it was 20K from point two, chasing each other, pursuit style on the course. Then 11 a.m. hour long erg, 20 strokes a minute, flat out as hard as you could, and then 2 p.m. 10 by 2K rate 18 on a stagger, trying to win every single piece, and just like that for weeks. And those days, we even talk about it. We still have PTSD from like how deep those days.
So I just want to say that was the same workout every single day.
For 4 out of the 6 days was the exact same.
Okay.
Yeah, like just like unbelievable monotony, no variability in the content, just low rate, long rows. 20K rows are Dick's perfect formula. I think we found out that he'd wanted us when we came back from our like COVID decentralized part was like 20K rows every row for a month. And that was it. 20K rate 18. Because his belief and methodology is that in the single rate 18, the force that you experience on the blades, on the body at rate 18, when you're going full pressure, is the same force that you experience at rate 36 for 6 minutes. But the only difference is your recovery is double or even more than double. So because of that recovery, you have the ability to repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. So you get to train your racing stroke over and over and over and over, hour on end. And that's why people are always shocked by the polarization of our program, where we go from a month of just rate 18 to all of a sudden out of nowhere race pace, 5 by 1K, 2 by 2K, whatever it is, and we end up going really fast. It's because the training that you do at low end, low rate is so hard on the body that the forces that you're experiencing are very similar to that of race pace. And then obviously when it comes to racing, you need more technical skill at moving that quickly, and that's a huge piece. But it's sort of back to where that slog of training, Aaron and I had like worked up to like in the front row of all the people on the men's rowing team. So we were like in the mix with the heavyweights for the fastest, because you just lined up from the fastest ergs to the slowest. And I remember just like brutalizing our bodies on these hour-long ergs to try and beat each other for splits and holding just like wildly ridiculous things. We were just like so incredibly fit. But because your next session was so quickly after, we would just like book it to the showers, book it to home, get your food into you, take your 20-minute nap, then start refueling again, then get back in the car to go row again to make sure you're warmed up and ready to go for the afternoon session. There was no time in the day to be nervous, to be anxious, to be considering how hard everything was, because everything moved from the moment your alarm went off until 4:30 when you finally get home, and you're barely able to make dinner because you're just like, holy shit, I'm exhausted. And then it's like 8:30, you're in bed, and the next day starts, and it's you do it all over again. So that part of training was some of the hardest. And for me, the hardest things are like getting myself to be in that space when the competition isn't there, because like competition just brings it out in me naturally. I don't have to mentally flick on any switch, because just my being flicks on, and I can be a bit of a lunatic, as Patty can attest to. But it's like the second rows when you're on your own, it's absolutely pissing rain, and we're going out in singles, and I'm like, I'm exhausted. What am I going to get out of this? But then what happens is you just watch Dick's boat drive off into the rain without even caring about the weather whatsoever, and then you just follow. Kai grabs a single, doesn't say a freaking word to anybody, onto the water. Carling doesn't say a word to anybody, just onto the water. Common the same way, and that's how our group has been getting strength off each other without using words. It was more with action. And I think you really tap into it there, Adam. Like, action produces a lot of really good things that relieve doubt in the mind.
Mm-hmm. Has it been the men's pair, Carling, Zeeman, and you? Is that the
and Trevor?
And Trevor.
And recently we just picked up the women's double.
Okay. And so what's it been like with that small training group?
Culture, like Max was talking about, is just, you kind of elevate each other. There's Max who elevates me like in the boat, but then you got this pair beside us that like, wow, these guys are here and they're not giving an inch, and we are going to go toe to toe with them. Like, we can't let them have anything. And then if the pair is not there, we have a Carling Zeeman to deal with. And it's just such a cool culture to be a part of, because everyone thinks they're the fastest and they're here to prove it to you. And so you got to go have a talk with them on the water. And it's just bonkers. Like, we will be doing a 10K and you can see Carling go by in the other direction, and she is ripping. And it's like, okay, we got to change something because she is trying to beat us. And it's like so much energy that's like not even talked about. You just witness going by each other's boats. You just see they're working so hard. And it's just amazing that we don't even have to talk. It's just strictly culture, and it's from Dick. It's from everyone.
Yeah, I think it's very special because it's like quite crazy, Adam, because no one says anything. Like, the culture is just existing with the bodies and the actions around you, but it's like when one person isn't there, you notice it, and the dynamic can shift. Part of the reason why Dick leaned so hard into Trevor and Patty and I to get the qualification done was because he knew that this time that we have right now, we need all those pieces in place for every boat to have the best chance of success at the Olympics. It's something that like I've talked about with Carling, is that, or like in when other groups at Rowing Canada kind of ask about us, and Patty kind of mentioned it. It's that like there's like an ego piece with every athlete in that group, that like a badge of honor that you've endured Dick's training, but also like a quiet ego piece that you think you're the best athlete at Rowing Canada. And I always say this to Patty, I was like, I sit here in the double and I know that I think I'm better than Patty, and I know that Patty's in bow and he thinks he's better than me. And we like know that we're not going to talk about it. Yeah. And then you look across and you're looking at Kai and Conlon, and I was like, I freaking know that Conlon thinks that he's the best. And I know that Kai thinks he's better than Conlon. And then you watch Carlin go by, and I was like, yeah. And Carlin looks at us and she's like, the boys don't even know what they're talking about. I'm way better than them. But it's like, it's not like you have, that doesn't anger you. It's just like, it is what it is. It's awesome because whenever we do our time pieces, like our like I was talking about, like the polarized training, whenever we do those time pieces, you just know that if you slip up, somebody is there to be like, sorry, dude, you're on the bottom of the progs today. There's no room for error, and everybody benefits from that. And it's pretty awesome. It's like a crazy amount of support that you get from your peers, but that it exists because they're doing their job and they're making you do your job better.
It sounds like a great group to train with. So let's look forward to Tokyo. Tell me about the men's double in Tokyo. And I've got two reasons for this. One, just to talk about it, but two, I'm also going to be the voice of Canada. So I need to know what's happening in the race. So tell me about the field and let me know what, myself alongside Steve Armitage is a veteran broadcaster, very skilled man. Tell me about the field. Tell me about what to expect. I know late men's double is a very exciting race because the field is so tight and the race can be strong. Anything can truly happen. But tell me about the other boats, what you're expecting, who you'll be looking out for, these kinds of things.
There's kind of like the 2019 people who qualified through Austria, and those people are very strong and talented, and we know we are right up with them. It's just a competitive field, and it's going to be like nitty gritty, 6 miles across, and like getting through the heat. Every like race is going to be like that. And then there's like 4 crews, Italy, Germany, Ireland, and then Norway as well. And Ireland is a bit of a favorite right now, but those last 4 positions are just like grabs. Like anyone can just show up and like one stroke good, one stroke bad. And it's just such an exciting race. And even for me to be in it all the way to the 1500, nothing's more exciting than just you're with them for so long and you just get to witness to see what they do and how they react at the 1500. So what you should be looking out for is how close the racing is, and like see if someone takes out really quick at the start, see how that impacts them later in the race, but especially in the light double. And then so there's people if they're out ahead, but then if there's a general pack, and then see how that pack functions together, who dares go first. I think you should see who tries to go first, and if they can try to hold on to that. Of course, look at the last 500 meters, because then that's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Obviously, the biggest thing we think about right now is like an opportunity to be in it is obviously you just got to be in the A final, more so than maybe any other event. Just once you're in that A final, the volatility of the field is just so high that realistically anything can happen. Is going to be obviously that those 2 semifinals to determine who gets to be in fighting for medals in the top 6 are going to be really intense. And I think I imagine that there'll be a number of boats quite close together through the 1,000, through the 1,500 meter mark. And it's those that belong and that those maybe were faking and or extending above themselves into the last 500 that won't be able to move with the crews that really shake down towards the line. Yeah, I think it'll be incredibly exciting. And I think having some poise and being totally okay with boats being all around you and all beside you is what makes lightweight rowing so special.
Well, because you had to exercise that in the qualifiers. China blasted out off the start in your final.
That was pretty cool.
And then you guys came through. Tell me about that.
I was like, wow, good for these guys. We just beat them in the semi. And I was like, oh, you guys are throwing in the flyer. Like, I know this game. Like, let's play a game. And yeah, I was like, when are you guys are going to crack soon, right? Like, come on, like, let's see some, like, and I think we were just...
Let's see you crack.
And I knew something was coming, and they weren't showing anything. And I was like, wow, this is a talented crew. But I was like never giving anything to that crew like credit. I was just acknowledging like, okay, they're doing this. Wow, good for them. And eventually, like, we just kept on the press. They were not giving up, like not an inch. And I just knew we were coming. And when we're coming hard, and we were coming through quite quickly. And yeah, we just slowly inched and inched through them. And then the checks started coming.
When did you catch them?
It was like 500, I would say. We were even. They were quite even. Like they were like half a deck down at 250 to go.
Yeah, it was cool. Like I said before, like my thing is I like Patty's voice is just like I just repeat whatever he says to me in my brain because I'm a counter. I'm just like counting strokes constantly down the course, and when he says something new word, just count restarts and just like keep going. I could just sense right away quickly into the race as we're like striding out and finding rhythm and getting that length, long, light stroke. He's confident. I just felt his confidence from behind me. Just remember being like, just do your job, do your job, do your job. And then the second half of the race, I just knew Patty was like, I could feel he felt good. And I knew that I felt good too. And so it was just a matter of staying the course and not letting the anxiety or the craziness of the moment distract from the job at hand. I think we both talked about this afterwards. Like, we'd be kidding if there wasn't a fleeting moment for, are we not going to qualify? Like, buzzing through your brain. When that happened, it was like a stroke or a fraction of a stroke where that flashed across. You saw it and then you threw it away because you were like, heck no, I'm going to keep doing this. And then you just keep doing that. And then there was a bit of a protection mode in the last 250 where it's just like the power that exists in the body is going to get us to the line first, as long as there isn't something catastrophic that happens. And so it was like, just get to the line and take care of the job.
Well, and I love that how you say the thoughts come in and then you brush them aside. I had a psychologist who would tell me it's about just change the channel. I've also heard it said you don't have to believe everything you think. Your brain is going to come up with thoughts, and it's like you see it next, and focus, eyes wide. Who was it? Scott Franson. He was a big fan of this. Men's pair. Eyes wide, be present, be here, focus on the job at hand. There's so much power in that, and you do have so much physical power, and you've figured out the stroke, so it's going to be a barn burner. It's going to be an amazing race. Post Tokyo, have you given any thoughts to that?
Yeah, so obviously take it pretty easy after a little bit.
Just relax.
Yeah. So
I'm going to sleep in on Saturdays.
Yeah, I'd take my Saturday, relax, take a breath. For me, like I'm gonna be headed back to school at UVic. I gotta finish my undergrad, and I'll be rowing with UVic, the Vikes, through the fall. And
wow, lucky program.
Yeah.
What are you studying?
Economics. I'll be doing the courses, and I'll be rowing for UVic, and I'll just have that team around me to keep me like training. Further down the road, I haven't really made any decisions yet. I'm kind of just waiting to see what unfolds around me and what unfolds around Max as well, because I think our partnership is like something I would like really only look towards in the future. Again, with the program with Rowing Canada. But right now I'm kind of like very short term, like all I'm doing is going to UVic, I'm rowing there, I'm doing school, and that's that. I'm staying fit.
The opportunity for Paris arises, you will, but there's not a lot invested in that future.
Yeah, not yet.
Yeah, well, it's crazy, right? Because lightweight rowing was going to be non-existent after this Olympics. But then because of COVID and because they couldn't get coastal rowing approved for Paris, it's going to exist for another quadrennial. And so obviously that only happened recently. Our minds were wrapped around being the last lightweight double of what is that, 20, 24, 25 years? of lightweight rowing.
96.
Yeah.
96. Well, we had Canada won silver medal, lightweight 4, 96.
Yeah. Also, Olympic level lightweights. I guess there was lightweight rowing before. 93 men's 8. It was like, obviously this whole quadrennial we operated on being the last two and wanting to do it right. And then all of a sudden you have the opportunity to potentially go again. And so we both just said, Pat's got a lot on his plate. I think I need to get dabbled into the life after rowing and experience some of those things to be able to know what that might look like and how that makes me feel. And like Patty said, our partnership's pretty special, especially the way it's solidified over the extra year of training and learning more about each other. I think for now, there's plenty we have on the plate for the rest of summer. And I think I have some very fun plans for hopefully like post Olympics also aligns with like COVID restrictions being lifted, and humanity and seeing people and just being able to embrace your fellow man again. I'm excited for all of that. And I can't wait, but at the same time, like, I think I'm just so excited to get back in the boat with Patty because of the travel and quarantine. We let ourselves decompress in the singles. That was actually some advice that you mentioned Scott Franzen gave. He said, like, after you guys qualify, give yourselves the reset because you need to rebuild that excitement, that same thing that you had before the qualifier. And throughout the quarantine period was perfect because we were in singles, and now we're at a point where I'm so excited to be back in the double. And it's like, it was perfect. I think we did a really great job. Hopefully Patty feels the same way. I think he does.
That's right, buddy.
Well, we'll leave it at that, and all the best to you in the training and the travels and the competition. I know I'll be cheering for you, and there'll be lots of people cheering for you, and enjoy the journey, man. Men.
Yeah, I guess.
Enjoy the journey and truly love it, because what a gift to be able to train for and compete at the biggest show in the world.
Thanks, Adam. This is a sweet conversation. I think I'm going to really enjoy having this no matter what happens. This will be a perfect little memory.
What a conversation. Max and Pat, two incredible athletes, having come from lightweight rowing in a very competitive field. Sounds like they're quite dialed in, and they were lighting me up too, just the way that they were talking about training and their love of the sport, their insights into the rowing stroke. It was really nice to hear, really endearing to. And I love the saying from Liam Parsons, Olympic bronze medalist, when you have the load you want, do not load it up harder, drive it faster. And I think that's not just a lesson for rowing, but a lesson for life as well. Sometimes we can be ambitious in our lives, in our careers, and keep loading things on. But as life keeps going, as we move through youth to young adulthood to middle age, life moves faster on its own. So find that right load that you can pick it up and drive it faster. Sometimes you just want to mess around in rowboats. That's why I love the Oarboard SUP rower and the all-water rowing boats made by Whitehall Rowing and Sail. Whether you're interested in adventure, the independence, or boat stability, these folks have a boat for you. The Oarboard is my favorite adult or kids rowing toy. With an inflatable SUP, it's easy to store and transport, giving you the freedom to row locally or explore new bodies of water. You get a full body workout and also connect with nature. The Oarboard is a highly portable invention that allows you to convert any paddleboard to a performance sculling rower and also do stand-up paddling. I've seen people sit down in kayak or canoe style paddle on their paddleboards too. MacGyver would approve. Mention that you heard this ad on this podcast when you contact the sales reps to receive the maximum discount, which could be up to 20% off. So visit whitehallrow.com and oarboard.com. Thank you for listening to Row Row Tokyo. Again, I'm your host, Adam Creek. Feel free to reach out to me with comments on Twitter at Adam Creek. That's @AdamKreek. No, it's not like the river or the squeaky door. It's a creek with a K. A huge thank you to our title sponsor of this podcast, Nicola Wealth, the gold standard of investment advice for affluent families, foundations, and institutions across North America. And another thank you to Whitehall Rowing and Sail and the Oar Board, which is the transportable, collapsible rower that you can take anywhere. Thank you, Rowing Canada, for your support to wrangle these athletes, and thank you, CBC, for promoting these conversations on your massive platform. This show is produced by the wonderful Mary Chan of Organized Sound Productions. The sound is edited and mixed by the creative Danelle Cloutier.